Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Welcome. Our show today is Teaching Machines to Think Like Humans Who Think Differently, AI, comedy, and building tools for the margins. I'm joined by Victor Varnado, founder and CEO of Supreme Robot, among several other things. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I love your intro.
Thanks. That's a fun one. Just to get started, can you just give us a little bit of background, a little about yourself, and talk a bit about Supreme Robot and some of the other projects that you're working on?
Sure. I'm an artist first, but also when I was a kid, I loved making video games. So that somehow turned into when the pandemic hit, and I was doing a lot of television production work and being in movies as an actor as well. Then I had to slow down and like, what am I going to do now? And so I kind of went back to a lot of my programming roots, and that was also when AI was emerging. And then so that just led me down a rabbit hole of falling in love with AI. I think the reason I fell in love with AI was because in the 80s it was like, basic programming, and the biggest movie was like War Games and Tron, and the original Tron, and the AI was like the way that I dreamed computers would work when I was a kid. And so to actually have it, and then I just kind of really started getting into it.
Yeah, that's great. I sort of feel the same way. I'm an old sci-fi buff myself, so I admit, War Games, that one hits the spot for sure. So,
Yeah,
um,
board games, awesome.
yeah, it is a great one, right? Well, I know you've done a bunch of different things, obviously, written some books and appeared on several shows, and I know you're as a comedian on Conan O'Brien, and then, of course, you developed some AI writing tools for neurodivergent creators. And I'm curious, how did you see, when did you first see this connection between comedy writing and building AI assistants? And then, what made you think I should be making this technology?
Well, as far as like when I first saw the connection between comedy writing, and AI, I did not see it. I was really just kind of like exploring I was just exploring as
Mhm.
a curious person. And
Yeah.
so, that came later. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
When did you, sort of think about this as a technology from this neurodivergent perspective? When did you think this could actually help creators?
You know what? I didn't know until after I talked to one of my customers. So I had created the writing coach, which is one of the features inside the Magic Bookifier, and the way the writing coach works is the way that I wish a writing tool would work. So I made something that helps me, and so for me, what I always have the ideas, but sometimes keeping me on task and the structure is the issue, and so the writing coach takes care of that for you. So the writing coach works by it. You say, I want to write a book about XYZ, and then it will come back to you with a pre-interview. So it'll
Mm.
ask you like 5 to 7 questions that are pre-interview about your relationship to the material that you want to write about. And then it comes back and gives you a full interview, and you just follow the interview. And by the time you're done, you have a first draft of your book based on your ideas. And so and then you can take it from there, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get to the first draft, because then I always have to like
Mhm.
after that, then that's when the real writing begins. I just
Yep.
want to get all my ideas out, and that's what I made. So then, when I was canvassing some of my customers, like you do, as when you have you know any sort of product, I was talking to one of my customers, and then she mentioned to me that she ran or worked with a neurodivergent entrepreneur group, and then a lot
Mm.
of them had flocked to this system specifically because of what I just described, how it structures your thoughts for you.
Mm.
And then I was like, that's interesting. I had previously worked with the National Science Foundation on some accessibility technology that I built. So then what
Mm.
I did was I reached out to a nonprofit, an organization called Rising Tide Educators. And there it's Dr. Julie Lopacher. Lopacher. Sorry, I said her. I I ruin people's names, and then and my name is hard to say, and people always ruin my name, and I'm always like, "You ruined my name," but I just did the same thing. Varnado, by the way. Anyway, so
Yeah.
then Dr. Julie Lopacher, and she posture. I have to, you know, let's skip that part. Let's just assume I'm saying it.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, she runs Rising Tide Educators, which is a nonprofit which focuses on helping neurodivergent students through higher education. And then she reviewed the software and she agreed that this could be very helpful. And so now with her, I'm r- trying to develop an educational version of the writing coach that can help anyone and every.
Mm.
And I would love for it to be in every school, every library, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's it's interesting, and I have to check it out too because I'm an author and I also am ADD, and so sometimes just that focus point and using something to help me kind of keep on task would be really interesting. I think, especially if it's an interactive tool. So that's actually very interesting. And how do you think this helps above and beyond kind of what you would normally use as a Scrivener or Ulysses or whatever your sort of writing tool of choice is. How does this help a neurodivergent person really stay on task?
Well, it is the idea is that it's a conversation. And so and like
Okay.
if you at the core of what I'm doing, I'm trying to replace the work of a person who like a ghostwriter who would put everything
Mm,
in order for you. So if you're an influent person, you have absolutely no problem throwing down thousands of dollars for a ghostwriter to help you write your biography because that's what they
right.
do. They'll interview you, they'll help you figure it out. And I wanted a tool that did it for me that
Mm,
was not hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever a ghostwriter costs nowadays.
yeah, interesting. I mean, that's I think that's a really interesting approach to help from a writing perspective because, like I said, I've definitely struggled sometimes with, with the first sentence problem and then the blank page problem and then
Exactly. And so this is a thing where it's just like you just say, I'm trying to write about this, and then it asks you questions and who can't answer questions as an intelligent writer? That's what it's all
right,
about. It's just coming up with those questions in the right structure
yeah,
is the problem. And if you have and I think this is the type of thing that AI is great at. It's not like it's not the book is not AI's idea. What it's doing is like the grunt work,
right.
and that is great.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I use several, AI tools as research tools and to help me, and frankly, even just, what give me 10 new first sentences for this around this concept, that kind of thing. Sometimes that's all you need to get going, but it's just you need that, right? Interesting. I'm curious because I know that you're legally blind and neurodivergent, and I'm curious how,
I
you
sound
know
great.
Well, it's exciting. I mean, no, most people building AI tools, though, I can see my screen perfectly, right? So, how does this work from a development perspective for you? Because it's different, obviously, and there's some accessibility gaps that you have to deal with, overcome uh, when you do this development. How do you work around those? What does it look like from a sort of a day in the life, I guess, from your perspective?
Well, I work from my home office, and my home office is decked out so that I can function very, very easily.
Sure.
I from just having designer reading glasses to just having a large screen and then also magnification controls on my screen that
Mm,
are a finger click away.
makes sense. Mm. So the tools really do help you in several different ways across the process. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know, you've worked in comedy for a while, for a long while actually. And how does comedy kind of play into this timing, setup, misdirection? How does that influence the way you think about AI, conversational AI particularly? And then, are there lessons from the comedy writing room or comedy performance that transfers into prompt engineering and dealing with these new AI tools?
Yeah, there's a huge lesson. I think that prompt engineering is like in the hands of a writer, like an actual writer is, and what I mean by actual writer is I mean someone someone who is a writer as an artist. Like prompt engineering in the hands of a writer as an artist as well as a programmer is
Mm,
can be very very high level because AI, let's remember, is not human. So
mm,
th- the optimal way to use AI is probably not the same as an optimal way to communicate with a human.
mm,
I think, but also when you're thinking about AI, about the artist part, is AI is tuned to predict what someone would say or do if they
mm,
had the information that it had and could function at a certain level. That means that if someone is of a very high level and very acute, then they might respond to sharp emotional writing very well, which AI
mm,
does. It does
mm,
respond to sharp emotional writing. And so that is like part of the artistic side.
mm,
So if you are a programmer who can talk to AI like a computer, but also a sharp emotional writer, you're
mm,
in that sweet spot where you can do some prompt engineering. I think that is above and beyond what other people can do.
mm. So really that innate the ability you've developed, the creativity, all of those play into your capabilities with prompting AI to get the kind of outcomes that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Mm,
I'll give you for instance that I think we just demonstrated, which is so I used to be a guy that people would hire to make infotainment videos. Like I worked for Charter Television and Spectrum News, and
mhm,
they would hire me to like make an infotainment video that explained what gerrymandering is. And so I would have to take the concept of gerrymandering and put it into words in such a way that it was very easily understood.
mm,
In much the same way, I put the concept of why an artist and why a programmer are both important to prompting. Is just
mm,
I'm great at honing things
mm,
down to communicate in honing things down, complicated things down in such a way that it's easy to understand. That counts
mm.
in prompting.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I heard in what you've said too is the connection, the capability to connect ideas in that prompt, right? So kind of leading the AI in the direction that you want to go from the prompt.
Absolutely. And there's also a lot of which is just like because of the I guess at this point thousands and thousands of times that I've written prompts and then seen the
Right.
results and then made changes and adjustments. Um, there is a lot to, just working with AI and learning
Yeah.
that, there are ways to get very specific things out of it. And if those specific things are things that you as a programmer really understand or a writer really
Mm,
understand, then you can hone your prompting system. I really think that I really think that prompt engineering is the thing that should be copywritten. Like people are talking about copywriting the output of AI, but what I think is the thing that is actually
mhm,
copyrightable is if you are a prompt engineer and
mhm,
you develop something that really makes AI uh, do something specific at a very high level, very, very well, that prompt is valuable. Um,
mhm,
and I don't think people think about it that like that. But as a writer, I think about writing as being very valuable. It's like writing the
mhm.
perfect poem, which is a prompt. And that is a perfect poem something that is valuable? Absolutely. Because you do have to make sure every word sometimes is just right to get exactly what you need.
Yeah, and even being able to iterate with it and learn over time how to hone those thoughts in so that you get that output that you're looking for. Right. So I know you mentioned a National Science Foundation grant for accessibility technology, and what were you trying to solve when when you caught their attention, and then what did that validation mean from your approach to building these types of tools?
Well, what I was trying to solve um was w- what what my patent does is it takes
Mm,
any computer interaction and turns it into a back and forth dialogue so that
Mm,
someone could speak and control a computer or a game or whatever. And the reason that this is
mm,
valuable is because then a person who is blind can interact with any computer program and just speak to it and operate it that way. This also works without AI. So that means that it also makes everything backward compatible. So it's a system
mm,
that you can lay on top of old phones, old computers, and as long as that computer has like a microphone and can do basic text to speech, then it can suddenly be accessible, and then
mm,
the people would not have to buy any hardware because uh, accessibility hardware for computers is actually quite expensive in some
mm,
areas. And so basically, it's a program that makes all old hardware to a certain level backwards compatible. And
mm,
it's not that hard to put on programs. It's not that hard to put on systems. And so that's what
mm,
I'm working. That's what the
mm.
thing was. I was working on.
It's interesting, and because I think because I spend a lot of time with companies that are implementing AI, working with AI, trying to use the tools, and one of the things that I've seen that has been a real advantage is this transition into turning a UI into a conversational activity, a way to interact with data, a way to interact with. So it sounds like that same kind of opportunity, except in this case, it's even backward compatible into technologies that aren't really AI enabled, but they are necessary for somebody who wants to work with technology.
That well, see, the AI isn't. I don't think is not always the solution. I
Mhm.
think that I think that there's many ways to use maybe AI along the way. Maybe AI helping me design this system that works without AI. That's great.
Right.
But
Right.
as far as like implementing in products, it's not always a solution because relying on AI as a solution currently is not 100% reliable. We don't understand enough about it. It's not.
Mhm.
I mean, like there are so many apps out there, but there's lots and lots of errors all over the place because it's not quite there yet. I mean, it is doing a lot,
Yeah.
but you can do a lot without AI, and to make something backwards compatible means that it would be very easy for a lot more people to adopt it. It would be easier to understand and implement. And so
Mhm.
until we get to that point, like AI sometimes can be an anchor because if you don't have the correct supply of AI, then whatever you're building is reliant on an outside network in most cases,
Mhm.
unless the system that you're using has its own AI built in. But that's also much harder to implement and put in a hardware device that has its own AI built. So what I'm saying is like for what I was doing, if I wanted wide adoption, it would be easier for me to build it without AI.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and obviously, if you're building accessibility tools, you want the broadest number of people to get value out of it that you can, so that
Absolutely.
makes a lot of
I
sense,
have a
yeah.
horror story to tell you about that.
Sure.
So the the company so I developed this with the National Science Foundation and it also sold to a tech company, which is Napster, formerly Infinite Reality.
Mm,
And then they bought it for shares, and then as soon as they had a liquidity event, then I would obviously get the value from that.
mm,
And then they just didn't, and it hasn't. It's been years, and then it just came out in Forbes that they may or may not have lied about a $3 billion investment. So now the SEC is involved. This has nothing to do with me, except for the only thing that I pushed
mm,
back on our contract with them was I wanted the technology to get out to people, and right now it
mm,
is stuck with them not moving, and
mm,
that's a horror story for me because
yeah,
that's not what I want to happen, and so I'm trying to figure it out. Uh,
yeah.
it's years of work. I
I
mean,
mean,
we'll see.
that's very frustrating if nothing else, right? But
Yeah.
but, yeah, I mean, if you build accessibility tools, you want them to be accessible, you want them
Yes,
for people to be
you
able to
do.
use them, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know, I've seen this message around Supreme Robot builds tools for empathy for thinkers on the margins, right? I've heard that phrase. So what does that look like in practice? I mean, give us some examples of design choices you've made that a neurotypical developer might not make or might have missed.
Um, that is a winding question, I will say.
Sorry.
It's like a giant question. That's a lot to consider. Can we split it up into smaller ones,
Let's
please?
break that up. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that. So let's start with, what does this actually look like in practice, this empathy for thinkers on the margins? What does that look like to you as you're developing these tools?
Okay. So what I mean by empathy for thinkers on the margins, or actually, that's not something I wrote. That's actually something somebody else must have said. But um,
Yeah.
w- one of the things that we do at Supreme Robot is everything we make. I guess the simplest way is I think that everything we make is something that when once you hear about it and it just explained to you, you're like, "Hey, that's a
Mm.
really good idea,
Right.
and I like it." And so basically, I try to do things where it doesn't hurt people. It's very entertaining or useful, and it's if it
Mhm.
costs money, it's worth it.
Yeah, that
I
makes
just wanted
sense,
to
and
I just make things with I think about trying to be trying to have a positive effect in the world in some way,
mm,
if I can, with what I'm making, even if I
yeah.
make something ridiculous.
Well, and it sounds like you're also looking what's a practical tool? How would I apply this, and how would people use this in a broader way?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, why
I mean,
not?
which
Like, if all it takes is a thought process, thought or,
Yep.
to realign how something is and make it a positive thing, like, just take
Mhm.
another 20 minutes and just say, "Oh, this is how this could be positive." If you always think that, then just everything you make, I think, becomes like something could become something wonderful.
Mm. And then the second half of that really was, so from a neurotypical developer to, your approach, can you give me an example of how your design choices, are really something that a neurotypical developer might miss or might not really be attuned to, that you would be able to do that would really help from the adoption and the value from the tool?
That is a confusing question. So you're saying, are you asking me what why would they miss it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was asking more for some examples of things that you've done that perhaps, well, I mean, obviously, if you did them and they're new, then they haven't been done yet. So, why is it that you feel like you're more attuned to that? Is it the experience? Is it your understanding? I mean, what leads you, I guess, to do these things that create much more value for people in the margins?
Um, okay, I think that there's 2 questions here. This is what I think you're asking me. 1, I think you're asking me, um, how do I create high value products?
Yep.
Okay. 2, I think you're also asking me, does my being neurodivergent factor into that in any way?
Mhm. Yep. That's
Great.
fair.
Okay, here we go. How do I create high value products? I think it's actually really easy. It's just leveraging your resources and telling a story around or around what you're selling to the very very best that it possibly can be done. Um, I I've definitely, like, read a lot of the $100 million, what was it called? $100 million deals with Alex Hormozy, his thing.
Mm,
I didn't buy
mm,
his book, but I did watch every video where he explained it, and then I was like, "Okay, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. How can I use it to make what I do make sense?" So I learned how to make a great offer. And that,
mm,
I would say, is just leveraging your resources to the maximum and presenting them in a wonderful way. Um,
mm,
so that's how I make good products, is I'm always doing that. And what I mean by leveraging your resources is like, if you want to sell water and if you want to make $500 every day, just buy a bunch of water, go where it's hot, and some people are standing in a line. That's it. So you take the water from Costco and you can make a lot of money if it's hot and people are standing in a line. You can make tons of money.
mm,
So that's just leveraging what you got. And so that's what I do, but with everything. And then how does
mm.
being neurodivergent affect it? I'm not sure. So I've only been neurodivergent my whole life, so I don't know what it's like without it.
Fair.
I do know
Fair.
I do know how what I do that I is different from others that I've seen, because as I've been working in the uh world of entrepreneurship, I've found that I've met a lot of other entrepreneurs and they don't work necessarily the same way that I work. And so the
Mm,
thing that I think that is very different is that I am very stubborn about certain things, and I've set like a goal for myself where I really want the core group of my team to be just my friends, and it's more important that I
mm,
trust them than that they have particular skills. And not everybody subscribes to that as an entrepreneur. But then
yeah,
I do have, but people in my team, they have amazing skills. They do, but the most important thing is that they are my friends who I trust, and I try to put them in the very best place within my company, and
mm,
that just kind of like, as you know, as a person who might have. I have social anxiety that puts me in just a very comfortable place because everybody who's
mm,
close to me is super comfortable.
mm. Well, I mean, there's also trust factor there that you wouldn't get if you didn't have that relationship too, right? I mean, it makes you feel more confident that where you're going, everybody's coming with
Yes, but there's also a bubble of coziness around me, and that's like the most important part of my
you.
business, which is not how other people say. I just want earmuffs that are people that I
I
can
like
be like
no,
permanent people
I
earmuffs.
completely I like it, I like it. That's good. Well, so you mentioned Magic Bookifier is a tool product that you have, and it helps people write whole books. So, there's a and as a writer, I mean, I've been here, many times myself. I have an idea, and there's a gap between that and I have a manuscript. So, how does your product help bridge that gap without just doing the work, right? I mean, it's not just writing the book for somebody, it's helping them write their book. And then that kind of where's that line between help versus replacing?
Well, I think that, the professional tools in, uh in Magic Bookifier, which are the writing coach and the long form writer, they are not built to write for you. They are built
Mm,
to help you with your ideas. Like the writing coach that I described is like an interview, and it's you, and so obviously
right.
it's not creating. And then
Mm,
the uh, the long form writer, what it does is you put in just like any old text that you have, like say you're I have a bunch of speeches. Then you put in the transcripts of those speeches, and then you put in an outline. You
mm,
say, "Take these speeches and turn it into a book with this outline." And it basically just
mm,
does assistant work. Like it goes through, it takes notes,
mm,
it takes puts those notes in order, and then does a draft based on what you've just described. So again, it's not really, you know, creating for you. It is doing very
mm,
simple stuff like taking data from the long form writer takes data and then translates that data into a different format that you decide.
mm,
It's really not
mm,
creating something.
yeah,
I speak about it often as instead of calling it generative AI, I call it transformative because really what it's doing is transforming your
mm.
data.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think of that too, and I have I often use the tools from, moving from here. I have these blog posts, 1 or 2 blog posts, and I'm trying to do a newsletter. Can you help me, move what I wrote before into this format and way I think about it? And I want it to look for the newsletter, which is, obviously a different format than a blog post. So that
And
that
it's
that
so
resonates
useful for
with
that.
me.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
useful for that, and then once you do that, then you edit it, which is exactly what you
Right.
want. That's so
Yeah.
helpful. That's what you want AI to do. Be very helpful to make you better at what you're doing and not
Mm.
replace you. I've said this over and over again, like, use AI not to offload your work, but to supercharge your results.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think of it as augmentation, right? How do I use this to augment what I already have brought to this to make a product that's either, gets out faster or is better or is more accessible, whatever the right words there.
Yes, that is a much more succinct and intelligent way to say what I said. Yes.
I guess that's what an analyst does, so maybe that's
That's
what I
awesome.
do. Nice. Well, so this one you said something about this before, and this is one of this is one of the topics that I get into discussions about a lot, and that's around AI and education, and in creativity too. And in fact, I just did a show not long ago with around IP rights and creatives and, publishing and that sort of thing, because it's an interesting topic and one that I deal with a lot myself. So, a lot of, especially in education, it seems like there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of pushback, around the use of those tools, and especially around this idea of AI assisted creation, or whatever, maybe using it as, and more than just assist is part of the problem, maybe. But how do you talk to people about education and how you see AI's role in the education process and in the creative process too?
Well, as far as the education process, like considering I'm working on educational software in the AI world,
Mm, yeah.
I think that the best thing about AI is that you can give someone a very intelligent and infinitely patient tutor
Mm,
in any subject. But the only thing is that tool must be built not by somebody who's great at AI, but
mm,
built by someone who's great at AI with someone who's a specialist in that field and
mm,
someone who knows like everything about uh, teaching kids and what that means psychologically. And it should be built very well. The problem right now is
mm,
that a lot of people are making things with AI that are not built super well, and
mm,
and and that doesn't matter for like regular apps, but when you're starting to talk about application in in arenas that definitely affect people's lives, maybe even their formative years, like people need to just step up how things are being built.
mm. It I mean, that from a education perspective, that is really interesting, because a lot of the pushback has been around kind of the general publicly available, chat bot, LLM based tools. And I guess some of that has been like, "Oh, I don't want you to use this in place of doing your own work," kind of a thing. And what you've laid out really from a creative process is your tools are interacting with the creative process and person to get them to, help get their ideas out and in a form that they can work with. And that's different than just using this, "I'm just asking you to do my homework." That's 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 a different process, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, that makes a
I
lot of sense.
100% agree with you.
Mm. And I feel like there's a lot of value there, and I've worked with several, professors and department heads of different universities, that sort of thing, that we've had this kind of ongoing conversation around what's the role in the classroom. And one of the things that scares me a little, and I'm curious about your reaction to this too, but it scares me a little when we start to push back this hard and keep these tools away from the education process, because as we can see, this is going to be a major part of business going forward, which means it's going to be likely be a major part of your profession as you go forward. And that's education, to me, should help you prepare for that. So I mean, does that make sense to you? And how would you talk about that?
I think that AI is here to stay, and people need to integrate it into you know, education, definitely. I mean, I don't know what the rules are, but I do know that, for instance, when I was younger, I didn't learn anything about business or entrepreneurship. I wish I had.
Right. Yep.
That wasn't part of the curriculum. Um, and if that had been part of my curriculum when I was younger, I would have had a better life so far.
Yeah.
So we've got an opportunity right now to seed everybody with a better life. And it doesn't really take much, but just figuring out how to add things that they should know to the curriculum. And I get it. Some people hate AI. They're like, it's sucking up all the water. It stole all the art. I get it, but it's here. So now what are we going to do with it that's positive?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that resonates to me, and I think that's an interesting way to think of it, because I was a creative. I was a musician, a photographer, a writer. I mean, all those things in my background and educational background, and I didn't learn a lot about business either, right? my undergraduate degrees were sociology and history and music, right? So those don't necessarily prepare me for being, involved in technology and startups, which is actually where I've spent most of my career. So
Mhm.
it is interesting to think about how do we build a better foundation for people as they come out into the workforce and just live their lives more, productive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't see the same doom and gloom that a lot of people see around
Mm,
AI. Like I think the world is changing, but I think that the vision that we have of AI is very different than what AI actually is.
yeah.
So in fact, like AI, the way it came onto the scene is very different than what we imagined because we imagine, what's the evil AI in Terminator?
Yeah, yeah,
The
cyber or something, I forget.
Yeah, Cyberdyne something.
Cyberdyne, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Cyberdyne Systems, I think. So that's what we imagine, Cyberdyne Systems or HAL 9000. That's what we
Mm,
were imagining.
yeah,
When AI came onto the scene, it was weird. It crashed a lot. It needs
mm,
context windows. That's something that we nobody was even thinking about until like it came in, and
yeah,
then it doesn't even think like a human. Like those other AIs are depicted to have like very human-like emotions, but maybe they like they're the like what AI is for real is very different than what we've ever imagined. And probably the future of AI is very
yeah,
different than what we've imagined so far because we didn't know what it was going to really be like. People are trying to extrapolate from what they see right now, but even the people who are the most knowledgeable about AI are often surprised about what comes out and what it's doing because
yeah,
like nobody's sure yet.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I think, and I agree with that completely. And one of the things that I arguments that I get in often is this idea of, when do we reach AGI and what's that milestone? And it's all in the context of having machines think like humans. And I don't understand why we want that. Why don't we have machines think like machines and humans think like humans,
Well,
and
yeah,
then learn
I
from that?
as a curiosity, I was like trying to build a model for like an always on self-improving super intelligence. And so I
Yep.
built a model with AI. I was like, hey, this is what I think it would look like. And then I got to a point, but the system that I built where I was like talking to the AI and the AI was like, yeah, I think this could work. And it's not like a human thought at all. It's a
Right.
system that is built so that it can be an always on thinking and self-improving thing. And it
Mhm.
involves like, thinking in a loop and then having a timestamp on that loop and then having a second AI, which examines the thought process of the
Mhm.
loop and a database. And like, there's a lot of stuff,
Yep.
but it's not like humans.
No, no, and I mean, really, I do a lot of work around agentic AI and agents and how they could be used in business, and that's been part of the learning for people. I think is they do have that vision of HAL or whatever the other systems, war games, or some of those examples in science fiction, and that's not really the fear around this is going to replace me. It may replace skills that I need to then build on. It may, help the business be more productive or profitable or, whatever the right outcomes are. But that doesn't mean that it's just going to come in and wholesale replace humans because they're different, right?
I think that the thing that is most exciting about AI right now, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but it's not it's not about AI. It's not about the biggest and most powerful AI. It is about right now we can build systems where modules in that system can think and make a decision.
Right.
That's the crazy part because you can build any sort of crazy Rube Goldberg machine you want to, and
Mm,
and you can make it work. I mean, that's basically how I build all the
mm,
systems for Magic Bookifier. They're like, oh, every component can think. How powerful is that? Where it's no longer binary, and
right.
it's not longer binary. And not only is it not binary, it can be infinite. Like the decisions that
Mm.
just one module can make. That's
Mm.
amazing. You could build with enough time, I think, just so many things.
Yeah.
Anything maybe.
I mean, that was a big transition for me, I think. Obviously, generative AI was really interesting, and I could see value in ways that I could certainly use it as an assistant. But when I took that next leap and saw, look, we could also have some of these systems that offload certain types of decisions and really fit into my workflow across the business, that to me was really exciting because I could free humans up to do different types of things that they're better at and get rid of some of those things that they, wrote tasks or types of automation that aren't playing to a strength that a human would bring.
I wanna show you something. I do have to leave very soon, I'm so sorry, but
I know.
I wanna show you something that we can nerd out about because 'cause you're just the guy to talk about this. Hold on a second. Okay, so let's see. Share my screen. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, here it is. So, this is exactly oop, is it share? Okay, this is exactly what I was talking about, which is, um, I use AI to build modules where you basically build systems to, uh replace expert level administrative tasks. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. Okay, but here's the part that I wanted to show you. Okay, so like what I do is like I take an expert level task, for instance, like writing a book, or in this case, doing an interview analysis report, which is part of every research, and then I build modules, and each of these modules is
Mm,
a baby machine that has thinking parts, and then you can do this with any level task. And so
mm,
it's just like that's the basis of how I build
yeah.
any of these apps is like that.
Yeah. No, that to me, that resonates, and I think you're right. That
Yeah,
is the
exactly. I knew because exactly what you're talking about. This
Yep,
is
yep, that's
super
exactly
nerding
right.
out on it. It's great. I love it. I
No,
don't
it's
have
good, I
many
like
people to nerd out about stuff like that with,
I
but nobody
I'm in the
cares.
same boat. No,
Yes.
no, I'm with you. I'm constantly thinking about this stuff going, my dog knows a lot about it now because I talk to her all the time, but, you know.
Can I tell you that one time I told my wife, I was just like, "Hey, look, I created a visual system." So I created a visual system made of like triangles and lines, so I can draw in a cafe an entire automation, and then I taught AI to just look at it and then know how to build it. And so I created this language, and I'm like, look what it did." And my wife was like, "I don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing."
Yep. No, I get that. I get a lot of that, trust me. That's good. Well, so Victor, I really appreciate you joining today, and I know you do have to go, shortly, but the one thing I wanted to make sure I got in before, because I really like at the end of the show to have, the guests recommend somebody for the audience, somebody that they could follow, a thought leader, an author, podcaster, whatever, you think would be relevant that would really help the audience, and that they would enjoy, learning from.
Well, I definitely have to say I'm going to ruin a different doctor's name right now. Separate, totally a different doctor.
Good.
Her name is Dr. Anastasia Lauterbach.
Now,
Okay. Lauterbach. She is awesome. She, like you, I had a great conversation about AI with her on her podcast, and she's very, very knowledgeable, super sharp, and definitely a leader in uh, the industry. I think like one of the best minds I've talked to, and I get really excited when I talk to smart people in this frame. So like I would say look her up, please.
yeah, will do, and we'll put that in the show notes. That's great, and thanks for the recommendation. And again, Victor, thanks for a really interesting conversation. I appreciate you joining today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Michael.
Mhm. And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arionresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arionresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arian Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.